Chosen one. God hid wealth from you until you learned this. I repeat, God hid wealth from you until you learned this. You are not listening to this by accident. You didn't stumble into this moment. This is a divine appointment orchestrated by heaven, timed precisely for where your spirit is right now. And chosen one, hear this clearly, you are standing at the edge of a supernatural shift. Not a theory, not motivation, a realignment that prepares you for wealth that does not destroy, expose, or consume you. Wealth does not arrive when you learn how to make money. Wealth arrives when you learn how to keep your soul steady once money shows up. That is the truth most never learn. And that is why so much money comes fast and leaves even faster. But you were not delayed. You were protected. Heaven withheld what your old version could not safely carry. Chosen one. This message exists to answer the questions you've been quietly carrying: why others rise and fall, why your breakthrough feels slow, and why something deep inside you has always sensed that your wealth must arrive differently. By the end of this word, clarity will replace confusion, peace will replace frustration, and alignment will replace striving, just as it is written that the vision awaits its appointed time in Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 3. Stay with me. Subscribe now so we stay connected in this appointed season, and type 777 in the comments as your covenant that you will listen fully, grow faithfully, and step into the life of the chosen riches you were always called to carry. Chosen one. Let me ask you something gently but truthfully. What is your relationship with money right now? Not what you say out loud, not what you post, but what happens inside you when you think about wealth, when you imagine having more than enough, when you picture a life where money is no longer a daily concern. Because heaven has been watching that inner response far longer than you realize. And that response is exactly why wealth was hidden from you for a season. There is a misunderstanding many people carry, and I carried it too. We were taught that wealth arrives when you become smarter, faster, more strategic, more aggressive. But chosen one, that is not how divine wealth works. Heaven does not release abundance based on how well you can earn it. Heaven releases abundance based on how well you can carry it. And those are two very different qualifications. I've seen people make a lot of money quickly and lose themselves even faster. I've seen relationships fracture, peace evaporate, and purpose get swallowed by pressure, not because money is evil, but because the soul holding it was never prepared. Chosen one. Wealth does not expose your skills. It exposes your inner world. When money increases, whatever is unstable inside you gets amplified. Fear becomes louder. Ego demands more attention. Old wounds start asking to be soothed with spending, comparison, or control. That is why so many people rise fast and fall hard. Not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked internal alignment. And God, in His mercy, refused to let that be your story. There was a season when you wondered why things moved slowly for you. You watched others surge ahead. Promotions, opportunities, investments, connections seemed to land everywhere except your hands. And quietly, you asked yourself if you were doing something wrong. But chosen one, hear this clearly now. The delay was not a denial. It was divine shielding. God was protecting you from meeting wealth before you met yourself. Because money in the hands of an unanchored soul does not bless. It burdens. I want to ground this in reality, not theory. I've walked through seasons where my income increased, but my peace did not. I remember moments where I thought more money would solve the pressure, only to realize that it magnified my restlessness instead. I was earning, but I wasn't steady. And if wealth had arrived in full force during that season, it would have owned me instead of serving me. God didn't remove opportunity. He removed timing. He waited until my inner posture changed. Chosen one. This is where many people misunderstand divine wisdom. God is not impressed by hustle alone. He looks for stewardship of the heart. Scripture reminds us that if you are faithful with little, you will be trusted with much. But faithfulness is not just about numbers. It is about emotional discipline, spiritual maturity, and humility when no one is watching. It is about how you treat money when it is scarce and how you imagine using it when it is abundant. This is why some people live modestly yet carry deep wealth, while others live loudly and collapse under the weight of their own image. There are people who look ordinary, even invisible, but their lives are fortified with quiet consistency, patient accumulation, and long-term thinking. They are not chasing applause, they are building foundations, and that kind of wealth is protected because it is aligned. Chosen one, heaven was training you to stop equating wealth with visibility. Because the moment you need money to prove your worth, money becomes dangerous. When wealth arrives before humility, it feeds pride. When it arrives before healing, it feeds addiction. When it arrives before discernment, it attracts the wrong people. God hides wealth until the soul no longer needs validation from it. That is not punishment. That is preparation. Think about this honestly. There were moments when you wanted more, not for freedom, but for recognition. More so people would finally see you differently. More so you could silence doubt, both yours and theirs. God saw that. And instead of condemning you, He slowed the process. Because wealth that arrives to heal insecurity rarely does. It usually deepens it. So God worked on the insecurity first. Chosen one. There is a reason Scripture speaks about wisdom before riches. Wisdom anchors wealth. Without it, money leaks through impulsive decisions, emotional spending, and the constant need to compare. That comparison is one of the most subtle destroyers of wealth. You start measuring your life against someone else's highlight reel, and suddenly what was enough feels empty. You upgrade not because you need to, but because you feel behind. And slowly, quietly, wealth slips away. Heaven has been teaching you something different. You were being trained to know when enough is enough. Not because you were meant to stay small, but because you were meant to grow stable. Stability is rare. And God entrusts rare resources to rare vessels. That is why your journey felt lonely at times. Not everyone understands restraint. Not everyone values patience. But those qualities are exactly what allow wealth to remain when storms come. Chosen one, the world celebrates speed. God honors endurance. The world rewards appearance. God rewards alignment. And right now something is shifting. Not because you suddenly learned how to make more money, but because you learned how to sit with yourself, regulate your desires, and detach your identity from outcomes. That inner work is invisible, but it is priceless. You are beginning to understand that wealth is not about buying things. It is about buying freedom. Freedom from panic. Freedom from being trapped in situations that drain your spirit. Freedom to choose differently when life demands courage. And that kind of freedom requires more than income. It requires margin. It requires patience. It requires the ability to delay gratification without resentment. Chosen one. God hid wealth from you until you learned this peace must come before provision, or provision will destroy peace. Alignment must come before abundance, or abundance will fracture alignment. And now, as your inner posture shifts, heaven responds, not loudly, not dramatically, but decisively. Stay present in this moment. Let this truth settle, because what is being unlocked is not just understanding, it is readiness. Chosen one. Let me take you deeper now, because what you are beginning to sense is not coincidence. Heaven has been teaching you through contrast. You have been allowed to witness two very different paths so that your spirit could discern the difference long before your hands ever touched wealth. Some people were permitted to rise quickly, others were permitted to rise quietly, and only one of those paths is protected. There are those who appear ordinary on the outside, almost invisible to the world's applause, yet their lives are fortified with something rare: restraint. They do not chase lifestyle upgrades. They do not feel pressured to impress. They do not confuse income with identity, and because of that their wealth grows silently, patiently shielded from chaos. Then there are those who are celebrated early. Their success is loud, their spending is visible, their life expands outward faster than it stabilizes inward, and when pressure comes, everything they built begins to shake. Chosen one. This is not about morality, this is about maturity. Heaven does not judge wealth by how much you accumulate, but by how much remains when conditions change. That is why God hid wealth from you until you learned how to value what cannot be seen. Because what is visible attracts attention, but what is invisible sustains legacy. I want you to think about how often people confuse success with spending. A bigger house, a newer car, a louder lifestyle. We are taught subtly and repeatedly that if we can display abundance, then we must be abundant. But chosen one. The truth is far more sobering. Every visible upgrade usually comes with an invisible cost. More maintenance, more pressure, more obligation, more fear of loss. And if your inner world is not anchored, those costs slowly drain your strength. I have watched people earn more than enough and still feel trapped. Their income was high, but their freedom was low. Their days were full, but their choices were limited. They could not walk away. They could not slow down. They could not breathe without calculating the consequences. And quietly, they became servants to the very wealth they once prayed for. God saw that pattern long before you did, and He chose not to hand it to you prematurely. Chosen one. Heaven is not impressed by excess. Heaven values margin. Margin is what allows you to respond instead of react. Margin is what gives you options when life shifts. Margin is what protects your peace when storms arrive. And money without margin is not wealth. It is exposure. That is why some people look rich but live anxious. Their life is stretched thin, their obligations stacked high, their sense of safety fragile. You were being taught to build inward before expanding outward, to stabilize before scaling, to learn patience in small amounts so you would not panic with larger ones. This is not the training of the world. This is the training of the chosen. Scripture speaks of seasons where preparation happens in obscurity, seasons where nothing looks impressive, yet everything essential is being formed. That was your season. Chosen one. Comparison is one of the fastest ways to sabotage wealth. When you measure yourself against others, you stop listening to your own pace. You begin to rush decisions that were meant to mature. You adopt standards that were never assigned to you, and slowly you trade discernment for imitation. God withheld wealth because He was breaking that habit inside you. He needed you to stop looking sideways before He could move you forward. There is a reason why so many people want the appearance of $1 million but are not prepared to hold it. Deep down, many do not want wealth for stability. They want it for consumption. They want to spend the proof, and spending the proof is the fastest way to lose it. Chosen one. When you learn to value preservation over display, wealth begins to trust you. I want to speak personally again. There was a time when I believed the next financial increase would finally make me feel secure. But each time income rose without inner discipline, my stress rose with it. I was solving one problem while creating another. It was only when I learned to sit with restraint, to say no to unnecessary upgrades, to detach from external approval, that something shifted. Not in my bank account at first, but in my nervous system. Peace came before increase, and when peace arrived, increase followed differently. Chosen one that is not accidental. God does not pour abundance into chaos. He pours it into alignment. That alignment includes how you view other people's success. When you can genuinely celebrate without envy, when you can observe without comparison, when you can wait without resentment, you signal readiness. Those inner signals matter more than strategies. You are also learning that wealth is not about what you can buy. It is about what you can decline. The ability to say no is one of the clearest signs of maturity. No to pressure, no to trends, no to proving yourself, no to unnecessary debt disguised as reward. Every no protects a future yes. And God was watching how you handled those moments long before any major door opened. Chosen one. The world conditions us to believe that if we do not upgrade constantly, we are falling behind. But heaven teaches something else entirely. Sometimes staying where you are, holding steady and resisting expansion, is the most advanced move you can make. Growth that outpaces wisdom is dangerous. God delayed the growth so wisdom could catch up. This is also why wealth is connected to humility. Humility does not mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking clearly. It means recognizing limits. It means honoring timing. When humility governs your decisions, wealth stays longer. Pride accelerates spending. Humility preserves resources. And God hides wealth until humility becomes natural, not forced. Chosen one, you are beginning to see that money is neutral. It is not a savior. It is not an enemy. It is a magnifier. Whatever is already inside you will be amplified when it arrives. That is why God dealt with the inside first. He did not want your fears amplified. He did not want your wounds funded. He did not want your insecurity validated. He wanted your character to lead and your resources to follow. As this understanding settles, something in you is changing. You are no longer chasing wealth with desperation. You are no longer measuring your worth by your income. You are no longer rushing outcomes to feel safe. And that shift is not small. It is the doorway. Heaven responds when the heart is steady. Chosen one. The protection you once misinterpreted as delay is revealing itself as wisdom. You were spared from mistakes that would have cost you years. You were shielded from burdens you were not meant to carry. And now, as your perspective aligns, you are entering a different relationship with wealth altogether. One where money serves your life instead of consuming it. Let this truth anchor you. Let it settle deeply, because what is forming now is not just understanding, it is capacity. Chosen one. There is another layer. Heaven has been patiently shaping inside you, and it revolves around a truth most people never confront. Honestly, dissatisfaction is not a financial problem, it is a spiritual one. Many lose wealth not because they lack opportunity, but because they never learn when to stop reaching. They confuse growth with excess. They confuse ambition with restlessness. And slowly, what once served them begins to rule them. You have lived in a world that constantly whispers, more status, more comfort, more recognition, more speed. And if you are not careful, that whisper becomes a command. You start measuring your life by what you do not yet have, instead of honoring what has already been entrusted to you. Chosen one. Heaven had to teach you something here before releasing greater wealth. Contentment is not settling, it is stability. There is a dangerous belief that if you are not constantly upgrading, you are failing. But God does not see progress the way the world does. He sees depth. He sees roots. He sees whether your desire is anchored or endless. Because desire without boundaries is never satisfied. It only grows louder. That is why some people accumulate more and more yet feel emptier with every step forward. They are chasing a feeling that money was never designed to give. Chosen one. This is where comparison quietly poisons the soul. You look around and someone always seems ahead. Someone earns more. Someone lives bigger. Someone appears freer. And instead of asking what that life costs them internally, you assume their path is the standard. That assumption pushes you to reach for things that were never assigned to you. God withheld wealth until you learned to break that cycle. Comparison does not just steal joy, it distorts timing. When you compare, you rush. You make decisions prematurely. You stretch beyond your capacity. You sacrifice peace to keep up. And wealth that arrives under comparison rarely stays. It slips away through pressure-driven choices, emotional spending, and unwise commitments. Heaven needed you to learn how to stand still without feeling behind. I want to speak from experience here. There was a time when I believed contentment meant lack of ambition. I thought if I stopped wanting more, I would stop growing. But what I learned is this ambition, guided by insecurity, never rests. It always demands proof, and that demand is exhausting. It drains energy, clarity, and eventually resources. When I learned to pause to ask myself why I wanted what I wanted, something shifted. My decisions became cleaner. My spending became intentional. My peace returned. Chosen one. God does not oppose growth. He opposes obsession. Obsession blinds discernment. It convinces you that if you do not act now, you will miss everything. But heaven does not operate in panic. Divine timing is not rushed. Scripture reminds us that there is a season for everything, and wealth arrives in its proper season, not according to pressure, but according to readiness. You were being trained to recognize when desire was healthy and when it was hollow. Healthy desire aligns with purpose. Hollow desire seeks validation. Healthy desire builds slowly. Hollow desire demands instant gratification. And God refused to fund hollow desire in you. Not because he wanted to withhold, but because he wanted to protect. This is also where the idea of enough becomes sacred. Enough is not a number, it is a posture. When you know what enough feels like, you stop chasing to prove. You stop upgrading to impress. You stop exhausting yourself to belong. And when that posture forms, wealth becomes safe, because it no longer controls your emotions. Chosen one. Dissatisfaction creates endless motion. Motion without direction burns resources. God slowed you down so you could find direction first. He allowed you to sit with unanswered wants so you could examine them. Some desires dissolved when you looked at them honestly. Others transformed into wiser goals. That filtering process is essential. Without it, wealth amplifies chaos. I want you to notice something important. People who never feel satisfied often sabotage themselves. They take unnecessary risks. They overextend. They borrow against futures they haven't built yet. And when things collapse, they blame circumstances. But the root was never external. It was internal hunger without discernment. Heaven did not want you learning that lesson the hard way. Chosen one. Learning to be satisfied does not mean you stop dreaming. It means you stop running from yourself. It means you can sit in your current life without resentment. That ability is rare, and it is powerful, because a person who can rest is a person who can wait, and a person who can wait can be trusted. You are also being taught to see money as a tool, not an emotional regulator. Many people spend to soothe anxiety. They upgrade to quiet insecurity. They purchase to feel ahead. But those feelings return quickly, and the money is gone. God needed you to find peace without spending it. Because if money becomes your emotional outlet, it will never accumulate. It will always leak. Chosen one. There is nothing wrong with enjoying what you have. There is nothing wrong with comfort. But when comfort becomes identity, wealth becomes fragile. Heaven trained you to enjoy without attachment, to appreciate without dependence, to desire without desperation. Those qualities protect abundance. You may have noticed that as your mindset shifted, your reactions changed. You were less triggered by other people's success, less rushed by trends, less tempted to prove. That is not accidental. That is evidence of maturation, and maturation attracts provision. God hid wealth from you until you learned this. Wanting more does not make you worthy of more. Being steady does. Being grounded does. Being grateful does. When gratitude governs desire, wealth can grow without poisoning the soul. Chosen one, there will always be someone with more. Always. If your peace depends on comparison, you will never rest. But if your peace is anchored in purpose, comparison loses power. And that is the place where wealth is safe. Let this truth settle deeply. You were not being limited. You were being refined. And that refinement is now becoming visible in how you think, how you choose, and how you wait. Chosen one. There is a truth that cuts deeper than most people are willing to admit, and heaven had to train you in this before wealth could safely come near you. The truth is, this many people do not want money for freedom. They want money for respect. And that desire, if left unhealed, will quietly destroy whatever wealth touches it. You live in a world where appearance is mistaken for authority, where people assume that the car, the house, the clothes, or the lifestyle somehow prove the value of the person inside. And without realizing it, many begin to chase money not to build a life, but to manufacture an image. Chosen one. God saw early on that if wealth arrived before this illusion was dismantled, it would trap you instead of elevate you. Respect cannot be purchased. It can be mimicked temporarily, but never sustained. When you spend money to command admiration, you are renting attention, not earning honor. And rented attention is expensive. It demands constant payment, bigger displays, newer upgrades, louder signals, and eventually the cost becomes unbearable. Heaven needed you to learn something quietly. The people who matter do not respect you more because of what you own. They respect you because of how you move, how you speak, how you treat others, and how secure you are without props. That kind of respect cannot be bought. It can only be embodied. And God was far more interested in forming that inside you than handing you resources too early. Chosen one. Many people confuse admiration with respect. Admiration is shallow. It looks at the surface. Respect looks at the substance. Admiration fades when the image cracks. Respect deepens when pressure reveals character. Wealth that is built to impress invites admiration. Wealth that is built in humility earns respect. God hides wealth until humility becomes natural, not performative. I want you to notice how often spending decisions are emotionally driven, not because of need, but because of perception. What will they think if I don't? How will I look if I don't upgrade? Will I seem behind? Those questions are subtle, but they are powerful. And every time they guide a financial choice, wealth leaks out through insecurity. Chosen one. God had to remove your dependence on external validation. He had to teach you how to be unseen without feeling diminished, how to be ordinary without feeling unworthy, how to walk into rooms without needing to announce your value. Because the moment money becomes your voice, your own voice weakens. There was a season when you wanted more, not because your life required it, but because your identity craved confirmation. And that craving is understandable. Everyone wants to feel seen. Everyone wants to feel acknowledged. But wealth is a dangerous way to seek that feeling. It attracts the wrong attention. It invites comparison. It exposes you to people who respect your resources, but not your soul. I have seen this up close. People who thought money would finally earn them a seat at the table, only to realize the table was filled with expectations, manipulation, and shallow connection. They were admired, but never known, surrounded, but not supported. And slowly, the loneliness returned heavier than before. God did not want that isolation for you. Chosen one, true respect flows from self-possession, from calm confidence, from integrity that does not shift under pressure. Money cannot create those qualities. It can only amplify them if they already exist. That is why heaven focused on your inner posture before opening outer doors. You were being trained to ask a different question. Not, how do I look, but am I aligned? Not, do they approve, but is this wise? Those questions change everything. They slow impulsive decisions. They protect margin. They preserve peace. And they make wealth sustainable. There is also a painful truth here. Many people who spend to earn respect are actually afraid of being dismissed, afraid of being overlooked, afraid of being ordinary. God saw that fear in you not with judgment, but with compassion. And instead of feeding it with resources, He healed it through time. Chosen one, when you no longer need money to feel significant, money can finally arrive without enslaving you. When you stop trying to buy your way into rooms, you begin to walk into the right rooms naturally. And those rooms do not require performance. They require presence. Humility plays a critical role here. Not false humility that shrinks itself, but grounded humility that knows its worth without advertising it. That humility is magnetic. It draws genuine respect. It disarms competition. It creates trust. And wealth thrives in environments of trust. God was teaching you that the quiet life is not a small life. It is a protected life. That the people who chase applause often live under constant pressure to maintain it. But the people who do not need applause move freely. They choose wisely. They invest patiently. They build privately. And their wealth lasts. Chosen one, think about how often society encourages you to signal success instead of building it. To show before you grow, to celebrate before you stabilize. Those signals are seductive. They promise quick validation, but they carry long-term consequences. God withheld wealth until you stopped confusing signals with substance. There is also the issue of debt disguised as reward. Many are taught to celebrate milestones by stretching beyond their means. Bigger homes, newer cars, heavier obligations, all justified by the idea that you deserve it. But every obligation reduces freedom. Every unnecessary debt narrows choice, and wealth without choice is not wealth at all. Heaven wanted you to understand that freedom is the true currency. Freedom to walk away, freedom to rest, freedom to choose differently when life changes. And you cannot buy freedom by chaining yourself to appearances. God hid wealth until you learned to value freedom over image. Chosen one, when you stopped trying to impress, you started to stabilize. When you stopped measuring yourself through others' eyes, your decisions became clearer. When you stopped performing success, you began building it. Those shifts may have felt small at the time, but they were monumental in the spirit. Respect follows consistency. It follows integrity. It follows quiet confidence. And when those qualities govern your life, wealth becomes a tool instead of a trap. God delayed wealth not because you were unworthy, but because He was making sure it would not cost you your soul. Let this settle deeply. You were not being deprived. You were being protected from a version of wealth that would have demanded too much from you. And now, as that lesson takes root, your relationship with money is changing at the foundation. Chosen one. The final lesson heaven had to seal inside you before wealth could safely emerge is this: money was never meant to buy things first. It was meant to buy time, space, and choice. When people misunderstand this, they spend their way into cages they call success. God hid wealth from you until you learned how to recognize freedom when it appears and how to protect it once it does. Many grow up hearing that money does not matter because you cannot take it with you. Others are taught that money is the answer to everything. Both extremes miss the truth. Money is not the destination, it is leverage, and leverage in the wrong hands creates bondage instead of blessing. Heaven needed you to understand that before increasing your capacity. You have seen it happen. Someone finally earns enough to breathe, but instead of breathing, they upgrade everything at once. Bigger commitments, bigger obligations, less room to move. Their income rises, yet their life tightens. Their calendar fills, their margin disappears, and soon they are working not to live, but to maintain. God did not want you trapped in that cycle. Chosen one. Freedom is subtle. It does not announce itself with luxury. It shows up as options. The option to rest, the option to say no, the option to walk away from environments that drain your spirit, the option to choose work that aligns with your values instead of just your bills. Those options are the true dividends of wealth. Heaven was teaching you to see unused money not as wasted potential, but as stored choice. Money sitting quietly is not idle. It is waiting to give you flexibility when life shifts, waiting to support you when direction changes, waiting to protect you from panic when uncertainty arrives. That quiet reserve is not laziness, it is wisdom. I learned this through experience. There were seasons when I could have expanded aggressively, taken on more, pushed harder, and outwardly it would have looked impressive, but inwardly it would have cost me the very thing I was asking God for: peace. I began to notice that every time I rushed expansion, my stress followed. Every time I added obligations, my options shrank. So I stopped equating growth with expansion and started equating it with stability. Chosen one. The world tells you that progress means constant motion. Heaven teaches that progress often looks like restraint, holding steady while others rush, choosing simplicity while others accumulate, protecting time while others sacrifice it for status. These choices are invisible to the crowd, but they are visible to God. Time is the most expensive thing you will ever spend. You cannot earn it back. You cannot invest it later. Once it is gone, it is gone. And many people trade years of their lives for things that bring momentary satisfaction but long-term pressure. God hid wealth until you learned to respect time as sacred currency. You were being trained to ask different questions. Not, can I afford this, but what will this cost me? Cost in hours, cost in energy, cost in peace, cost in presence with the people who matter. Those costs are rarely listed on price tags, but they are real. And when you learn to see them, your decisions change. Chosen one, wealth that steals your time is not wealth. Wealth that forces you into obligations you cannot escape is not blessing. Wealth that locks you into a lifestyle that requires constant performance is not freedom. God was preparing you to recognize these traps before you had the means to fall into them. There is a quiet power in having runway, knowing that you can survive without scrambling, knowing that you can pause and reassess, knowing that you can say no to what feels wrong without fear. That runway is built slowly, intentionally, often invisibly, and it is one of the greatest forms of security you can have. Heaven also wanted you to understand that happiness is tied to choice, not consumption. When people feel they have control over their time and direction, their satisfaction increases. When they feel trapped, even luxury feels heavy. You are being trained to pursue choice over things. Chosen one, think about how often people justify unnecessary spending by saying, "You only live once." But living once does not mean living recklessly. It means living intentionally. It means choosing experiences that nourish rather than impress. It means designing a life that supports your spirit, not just your image. You are learning to detach joy from spending, to find fulfillment in simple rhythms, to value presence over possessions. These lessons are not small, they are foundational, because money amplifies whatever life you have built. If your life is crowded and frantic, money accelerates that. If your life is spacious and intentional, money supports that. God hid wealth until you learned how to create space. Space in your schedule, space in your finances, space in your mind, space in your relationships. That space is where clarity lives, and clarity is essential for stewardship. Chosen one. Many people believe that accumulating more will finally give them rest. But rest comes from alignment, not accumulation. It comes from living within your values, from honoring your limits, from choosing well even when no one is watching. Those habits create peace long before money arrives. You are also being prepared to understand that freedom looks different at different stages. Early on, freedom might simply mean not panicking at the end of the month. Later, it might mean choosing projects that align with purpose. Eventually, it might mean creating opportunities for others. But at every stage, freedom is about options, not appearances. Heaven is strategic. God does not release resources randomly. He releases them where they can multiply without corrupting, where they can serve without enslaving, where they can bless without destroying balance. You were being shaped into that kind of vessel. Chosen one. There is nothing wrong with enjoying comfort. There is nothing wrong with quality, but when comfort becomes obligation, it steals joy. When quality becomes performance, it steals peace. God hid wealth until you learned to enjoy without overcommitting, to appreciate without attaching your identity. As this lesson settles, you may notice something profound. Your desires are clearer, your spending is calmer, your priorities are simpler, and your fear around money is loosening its grip. These are not coincidences, they are signs of readiness. You are stepping into a relationship with wealth that honors freedom above everything else. Freedom to choose, freedom to breathe, freedom to live deliberately. That is the kind of wealth heaven trusts. Let this truth anchor you deeply. Money is not your master. It is your servant. And now, because you understand that it can finally approach without costing you what matters most. Chosen one, take a moment and let this settle in your spirit. What you have received today is not information, it is alignment. Heaven has been quietly shaping you, guarding you, and preparing you for a level of stewardship that requires wisdom, humility, and peace. The season of confusion is closing, and the season of clarity is opening. You are not late. You are not overlooked. You are standing exactly where you need to be. I declare over you now that a supernatural transfer is already in motion. What was hidden is being revealed. What was delayed is being released at the appointed time. This is your Kairos moment, the moment when preparation meets permission. Wealth will come to you in a way that preserves your soul, protects your freedom, and honors the life you are called to live. You will not be overwhelmed. You will not be exposed. You will be entrusted. Chosen one, remain faithful in the posture you have learned. Stay aligned with wisdom. Guard your peace. Walk forward with gratitude, not anxiety and expectation without striving. As it is written, those who wait are renewed in strength, and you have waited well. If this word resonated with your spirit, you may quietly seal it by subscribing to stay connected in this season, or by typing 777 in the comments as a sacred confirmation of alignment. Carry this revelation with reverence, walk gently, and move forward knowing heaven is with you. Go in peace, go in wisdom, go in abundance.